If you're new to us, we're the Pixelists. Hello. We like to recap every episode of Critical Role. Long content. Sometimes you need a quick refresher, especially before we're about to dive in and theorize and discuss. So we recap every episode before we jump into our normal podcast, and we cut that out, host that separately on YouTube for your convenience. So if you happen to find yourself on the recap video right now and you're interested in the meat and potatoes of our discussion, breaking down the episode, you can find that linked in the description box below. And with that out of the way, I guess we will jump into said recap. Which Blake, would you want to tackle the first half this week?
Yeah, so this is episode 38 of campaign 3 of Critical Role, and it was called A Dark Balance. And this episode opened up, it was a crazy episode. It opened up where the previous episode left off, which goes without saying. The episode opens up, though, where the party has just sundered the upside down sun tree, as I'm going to call it. And Delilah has screeched, and everything instantly went to white as each party member popped up back in this ritual room with Pike and Vexalia. Immediately, it's kind of like did it work? You know, what was this for nothing? Like, are we good to res our friend back? And Pike immediately puts her hand over Delilah, Laudna, and basically, to the dismay of the party, says, Delilah's still there. She's still there. She's still connected. Maybe be some truth to what Delilah said about how there's no way to actually separate them. Who knows? But Pike does say it's heavily reduced. And so they're kind of like, so? And Pike's like, okay, Vexalia, do you think I should do this? And Vex is like, let's do it. So she casts her resurrection spell. There's a little bit of a joke where Laudna's not breathing, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh no, she's always that way." Laudna pops up. Marisha comes back to the table. Such a sweet moment seeing Laura Bailey and Marisha hugging. And you come to find out that Vexalia has drawn her bow. There's two pale guards that are invisible in the room that have their guns pointed at Laudna. And they're very quickly like, quick, tell us something that only you would know that Delilah wouldn't know. Because they weren't sure if this was going to bring back Delilah or Laudna. She asks Imogen about her mother. It's kind of like oh, yay, it's Laudna. And Vex actually opens the door to reveal a troop of Pale Guard and Percy surrounding the house, ready to obliterate this thing if Delilah is the one who was to come back. Everyone kind of has their sweet moments, their welcome backs. Dude, I forgot like the most meaningful part of this resurrection, by the way. Before the resurrection worked, Matt actually had 3 people say a few words to Laudna. Orem, FCG, and Imogen all had these very meaningful requests to Laudna to come back to life, basically, with Orem rolling an 11, FCG rolling a natural 1, and Imogen rolling a 6. Pike fortunately rolled a 16, so the spell went through. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any repercussions from that at all. All that to say, they see this troop around the house. Vex is basically like, stand down, everything's okay. And Percy actually approaches the house and does have a conversation with Laudna. It's kind of like, hey, I'm sorry that, we're kind of the reason this happened to you. Vex says something similar also, and Pike also gives Laudna a hug, and a couple other people, including Fern, who... It's just so funny at the table when Fern gets this look. When Ashley Johnson gets this look, everyone just knows what she's thinking. She tries to sleight of hand, steal the holy symbol off of Pike. With a 17, fails, and Pike. There's kind of this funny moment of like, oh, it's stuck on me. Oops, my bad. And Pike encourages her to come back and visit her at the bakery, in plain sight. The party decides to head to the Sun Tree. Laudna's like, I want to see it. This place where she died. She goes to the sun tree. She puts her face to the sun tree and feels the warmth of the sun tree. In fact, as she's doing this, she does something. You might have to help with me here, Will. She does like her form of dread, but it's
Yeah.
different. I think maybe Matt describes flowers or branches coming off of her.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if her patron has changed or what's happened there, but it was very different. So we'll have to talk about that in the episode. And then she actually is going to cast Find Familiar, and Pate, who gets dropped to the ground,
Oh my gosh,
transforms into her familiar Pate DeRollo with this deep Cockney accent that is so good, and is like, I'm here and I'm so Randy. It's just so funny. Anyway, the party kind of they meet Pate and have kind of a fun moment with Pate, and from there, they're like, hey, we have to actually share some of this important information with Percy and Vex, the stuff that we figured out about Otahan and the stuff that they're dealing with. A dinner party is thrown. There's some cool details there where like the main course is going to come out, and Imogen tells Vex, hey, it's not lobster, is it? Because that's what she had the night she was killed. And Vex is like, be back in a moment. And then comes back and is like, I hope everyone loves potatoes.
yeah,
So some cool details there. But and also even like Chetney asking about the clock tower that's in the castle and things like that, or in the city. All this to say, getting to the point, after dinner, the party basically sits down with Percy and Vex, and they say, hey, here's first things first. Someone's been stealing residuum. They basically say, we were aware that it was happening. We didn't know like exactly what was happening. We were fearful that maybe the Cerberus Assembly was involved, but because there's such a well-known front-facing institution, we didn't want to have to confront them because it's going to be very awkward. Party also mentions about the apogee solstice, and also additionally the Otahan Thule, and including what they saw on Ruidus with the telescope, which Percy confirms what we've been talking about in our videos, that this in fact seems to be some kind of divine gate. He pulls out some drawings or scribblings where that same lattice is described, talking about the divine gate between Exandria and the outer planes, and says basically like, yeah, that's what it sounds like. Percy takes his leave. Vexalia basically has a very kind of like warm final conversation points with the party, and is going to give Laudna a ring that she's been holding on her finger, and it is a ring of protection +1. And basically says, hey, take care of yourself. And it's sweet. This kind of parental responsibility they feel for Laudna. The party then decides to retreat to go to bed, and Laudna says, hey, I think I feel more comfortable sleeping at the Sun Tree. And the party, as one big happy family, they're like, all right, let's go. So they take I think Chetney calls them 50,000 thread count sheets and takes them out to the Sun Tree, where they go to bed. And then nothing bad ever happens after that.
that's right.
So
The end.
So take us with the next half, my friend.
Yep. So for the second half, we pick up with, everyone camping around the Sun Tree. And FCG is casting Shared Dream on Imogen, which they've basically been doing ever since they got that spell dating back to the airship. And because of that, FCG now, along with Imogen, of course, finds themselves in this red storm nightmare that Imogen has had many times before. They are standing in the field near her house, typically where she always is, and the storm is already all around them. Usually, it's like approaching, but in this dream, it's already there. Right. Imogen can see this shadowed figure in front of her, like moving in the storm, but can't really tell what it is. She warns FCG, hey, Otahan might be here. Be careful. So she tries to catch up to the shape, and in so doing, she realizes that it is not the slender frame of Otahan, but rather it's this broader, more masculine shape. And it's hard to make out the details beyond that in the storm, but she sees the figure stop, kind of briefly turn around and look over its shoulder, and then boom, it's gone. And Imogen has seen this before, both with Bertrand and the Loomis twins, so she immediately worries like somebody might have just died, and she worries it's Estrus. The storm then gets stronger, and so Imogen kind of picks up FCG and begins to will herself to fly, and not being tethered to the ground anymore, the both of them start to get basically jumbled all around by the storm. When they finally regain themselves, they look around to see where they are, and it's different. So they go back to she flies back to the ground, if you will, and it's like this cracked red ground, maroon kind of aesthetic everywhere around, and they look up and just see thousands and thousands of stars. And FCG's like, where are we? And Imogen says, we're on the moon. And then they kind of both wake up. So now the party has all gotten their long rest around the sun tree. And first things first, Fern actually tries to speak with the sun tree, and she takes the speak with plants spell and has a quick conversation with it, basically asking about like, hey, like I need to make a portal and travel through you now. And the sun tree lets her know that people make doors out of the trees, like we don't do it ourselves. But the sun tree's like, hey, if you learn how to do that, you know where I am. Fern then is like
McConaughey-esque.
Yes, it was so good to hear Matt do that voice again. She then asks the sun tree, like, you're old, right? And he's like, yep, really old. And she's like, were you around back when there was only one moon? And the sun tree said, no, like there's always been two since I've been here. And meanwhile, Laudna, is inspecting that ring that Vex gave her, and they're like, oh, let's give Laudna all of her stuff back. And so Imogen is trying to give her back the Bloodwell vial, but Laudna tells her to just keep it, like she could use it more than she can now. Imogen then is like, okay, she tells everybody about her dream and decides to send a message to Estrus, and she's worried about him. And she basically just says, like, are you alive? I had a dream. Please respond. But there is no response. Waits, nothing. She's then like, okay, we got to get back to Drusar. But the party's like, well, we don't know what time it is there. I think it's really early. Like, maybe he's just asleep. And so they're like, okay, maybe. They're like, well, wait, how do we even get back? And so then they remember Mania Ture, who was Estrus's friend that owed him a favor. And they're like, let's talk to her. Maybe she can portal us back. But let's wait a little bit just in case it is too early. And that's why, Estrus didn't respond. So they have some brunch. And then as they're kind of like exiting the castle, they see Vex practicing at the archery range nearby. So they go speak with her again really quick, and Chetney's like, oh my gosh, that bow you have is amazing. By the way, I'm a master craftsman. If you or the castle ever need anything, like, let me know. And he kind of takes that moment to showcase his skills and gives Imogen her gift that he's been working on, which is like this finely crafted wooden horse. Ashton then asks, like, hey, are there any stores nearby? We kind of need to like restock before we head out. And Vex is like, a lot of people are prepping for the Apogee Solstice, but like, give me a sec, let me go check. And while Vex leaves them for a moment, FCG decides to reach out to Mania Ture. They say, hey, we need transportation from the Sun Tree and Whitestone back to Drusar. Can you please come get us in exactly 2 hours? And she's like, boom, yep, don't be late. Vex comes back and was like, hey, follow me. And she takes them to the Whitestone expansion of Gilmore's Glorious Goods. Gilmore's not in, but Jerry is there to take care of them. And Matt basically says, classic, that the shopping will basically take place off screen, so he can like prepare and like, present them what items are available. But so we might learn about what they actually bought in the next episode. But they do go ahead and pick up 3 greater healing potions, and Fern also purchases this little trinket that Jerry personally made. That's this little griffin toy that can fly around when a command word is spoken. After that, FCG actually heads off by himself really quick to go to the Changebringer Temple, which is the Horizon Temple, to meet with Guide Osley there. Because I think he asked maybe Percy if there were any Changebringer temples around Whitestone. FCG finds the temple, and he finds Osley, who is just this unassuming man, I think eating a bowl of yogurt like outside the temple. And FCG basically says, like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know my purpose. Like, I don't even really know why I'm here, but I'm here. And Osley's like, many people are drawn here looking for answers. I can tell you're inexperienced with faith. And FCG's like, I'm inexperienced with everything. And Osley's like, you only need to open your heart and, be ready to hear the Changebringer's guidance. He's like, your confidence will grow as you walk the path, and each step you take will bring you closer. And in that conversation, he's actually like, roads are one of the most holy places for the Changebringer. So just feel free to, pray or talk to her on your travels, and she will guide you on the path. And there's like an offering plate to leave things. So FCG's like wants to leave something, but is unsure of what to leave. And Sam says, I leave the concept of FCG's flesh tongue. But then he also leaves some, I think, powdered incense and silver. And then he prays for the first time, saying that, I'll be listening and waiting and hoping to hear from you to let me know that, like, you're there. Mm-hmm. Party then reconvenes at the Sun Tree. At the appropriate time, they take the portal back through Jusar, opened by Manaya. She lets them know, hey, my favor's paid. See you later. The party then immediately head to Estrus's to check on him. They arrive at his house. Nothing looks off, but Imogen tries to send another message. Still no answer. FCG then casts Locate Creature, and this like golden thread points to inside the house as if he's in there. But they're like, okay, we should still be careful. So Chetney goes invisible, and Laudna is going to send Pate in to kind of scout. Chetney goes up, lockpicks the door. Pate makes his way in, starts scouting, can see that the place is kind of torn up. There's been a struggle here, blood on the ground, not looking good. Pate goes up the stairs into the bedroom and can see a body on the ground. And at this point, this information is conveyed to Chetney, so he starts following. Again, still invisible, making his way into the room, and does in fact see the body of Estrus lying on the ground, hand kind of outstretched underneath the bed next to him. And Chetney can smell blood in the air, and he can tell that something's off. There's something wrong or just off about the blood. And he can also smell Otahan's blood. So presumably it was her that came in here and attacked him. He then looks under the bed to see what Estrus was reaching for and sees a little iron lockbox. I think he rolls a natural 1 on his check for trap. So he's like, oh, it's all clear. Grabs that. There's like a weighted plate that shifts, and a big heavy item falls on both him and the body of Estrus.
And now he's dead.
Yeah, and yep, he's gone. 2 death savings. So then he gets this box, tries to open it, but can't. Then he inspects Estrus's body and finds a key ring. One of the keys opens the box, and inside are a bunch of letters, and we'll talk more in depth about those in our discussion portion of the podcast. But for now, the most important one here is that one of the letters is addressed to the Bell's Hells. I'm going to run through that really quick. It says, my friends, if indeed you have this letter in your hands, then my fate has finally caught up to me. I have done many violent things in my life, some I'm proud of, and some I still deeply regret. I've already been running on stolen time. I feel the looming specter of recompense with every morning, and since our paths have intertwined, I chose to stare down directly without lament. I could assure that I embraced my end with aplomb and left a mark on my foe they will never forget. In our relatively brief time together, you have brought a light in the world so continuously ruled by okay, now I don't remember if I transcribed this wrong or if there were like maybe parts that were.
Well, Travis, as he was reading, he was like,
oh, that's right.
He was like, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, get to the good stuff.
That's right. Okay, I was like, wait, did I forget parts? So yeah, so they kind of, Travis doesn't read the whole thing word for word. You and the late Bertrand Bell were the latest of these deeply appreciated encounters. With every step, I worried you had all stepped into matters far beyond your ability, foolishly marching into oblivion like I once had. I now know I was wrong. Those that twist the roads of history to their own dark ends want us to believe we can do nothing. They have no power in the face of such ancient, terrible machinations. I know they are wrong. True bravery is to stand in the face of fear and doubt and march ever on. True bravery inspires others to fall in line behind you and defy their illusions. You inspired me to fall in yours, and for that, I thank you. I have many debts to settle, gifts to dispense, now that my day is closed. Whatever sunset I may have been running from for far too long, I look forward to seeing Elia once more. I look forward to watching you all do great things from whatever realm calls me to rest. Remember me not just as a warrior, but as a friend. Friend in my own awkward way. Thank you. Now go stop. Now go stop this weird moon shit.
Yeah. I like that they're like, did he really say that?
And then also is included a recipe for his ginger cookies. And then finally, a part of a will that actually wills to Bell's turmoil, his like weapon, but also the airship, including a full year of expenses paid for the crew to work it. So they're like, oh my gosh, Chetney, well, not they, Chetney's the only one that's reading this at the moment, but he takes that, makes his way back out of the house to fill in everyone else on what he's seen. He also makes sure to grab Estros's walking stick on the way out, which is presumably Turmoil, the weapon. The party's like, we need to go somewhere safe and process and talk this out. So that's where the episode ends, but there's a brief moment that Orem kind of interjects and is like, I want to take a look at that cane. And he makes a medicine check and recognizes the toxin that he saw used on his husband and father-in-law that prevents resurrections. So Orem can kind of smell that toxin in Estros's blood, and that's where the episode ends.
Our man Estros. So that was episode 38, A Dark Balance of Campaign 3 of Critical Role. And if you're watching just the recap, click the link so you can see the whole video discussion. We want to hear what you have to say as well. Will, bro, what an episode, man.
Pour one out, man, for our boy Eric's.